The winter nights in Cape May are cruel to old bones. At 70, I've learned to live with the ache in my knees, but the cold in my son's house. That's another kind of pain. My name is Eleanor Bennett, and for the past 2 years I've called a small, drafty room in Nathan's home my own. The walls are thin, the lumpy mattress creaks, and the old radiator hisses like it's arguing with itself. Most nights, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind rattle the windows. Sleep doesn't come easy anymore. Not since George, my husband of 40 years, left this world 3 years ago. I used to be somebody. For 30 years, I taught high school literature in Philadelphia, shaping young minds with Shakespeare and Dickinson. My students would linger after class, eager to debate poetry or ask for advice. Colleagues called me the anchor of the English department, always ready with a lesson plan or a kind word. But here, in Nathan's house, I'm just Mom. Or worse, to Claire, my daughter-in-law, I'm the old woman who takes up space. "You need to rest, Eleanor," she says, her smile tight, like she's doing me a favor by reminding me I'm no longer useful. Nathan's kinder, but he's always busy, buried in blueprints for his engineering projects. I see the exhaustion in his eyes, and I don't want to be a burden. So I stay quiet, swallowing the loneliness. Our old house on Ocean Drive, where George and I raised Nathan, sits empty now. After George passed, the silence there was deafening. The rooms echoed with memories, his laughter, the way he'd hum Sinatra while tending his tulip garden. I couldn't bear it. When Nathan insisted I move in with him and Claire, I agreed. Not for me, really, but for him. "You shouldn't be alone, Mom," he said, his voice firm like he was saving me. I didn't have the heart to tell him I'd been alone long before I left Ocean Drive. Tonight, though, the house feels colder than usual. The radiator's gone quiet, and my breath fogs in the dim light of the bedside lamp. I pull the quilt tighter, but it's no use. My mind's racing, replaying the day. Claire's sharp tone at dinner. "Eleanor, you left dishes in the sink again." And Nathan's distracted nod, his eyes on his phone. I'm not sure when I became invisible, but it stings. I glance at the clock. 11:30, another sleepless night. Then I hear it. A low murmur from the living room, like voices trying not to be heard. Nathan and Claire are usually in bed by now, but something about the hushed tone pulls me upright. My slippers are icy against the floor as I shuffle to the door, my robe cinched tight. The hallway's dark and I move slowly, avoiding the creaky floorboard by the stairs. I've learned to be quiet in this house, to take up as little space as possible. But curiosity, or maybe instinct, draws me closer to the sliver of light spilling from the living room door. I pause, my heart thudding. The voices are clearer now, Claire's sharp and insistent, and Nathan's softer, uncertain. I lean against the wall, holding my breath. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm about to hear something I can't unhear, something that will change everything. The cold of the hallway seeped into my bones as I pressed myself against the wall, just outside the living room door. The voices were low, but Claire's cut through the quiet like a knife. "She'll never. Agree, Nathan. You know how stubborn your mother is." Her tone was sharp, impatient, the way it always got when she talked about me. I held my breath, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they'd hear it. Nathan's voice came next, softer, hesitant. "I don't know, Claire. It's her house. We can't just... We have to," Claire snapped, cutting him off. "Do you want to keep drowning in debt? $200,000, Nathan. That's what we owe. Your mother's house on Ocean Drive is worth a fortune now, $1.8 million, maybe more, with Horizon Innovations building that tech campus nearby. We sell it, we're free. We can finally breathe." I felt the blood drain from my face. My house. The one George and I bought in '78 for a measly $40,000. The one where we raised Nathan, where we danced in the kitchen to old jazz records, where George planted his tulip garden, his pride and joy. The house where I scattered his ashes, just as he'd asked, under the blooms that reminded him of our honeymoon in Amsterdam. They wanted to sell it, my home, my memories. Nathan's voice broke through my thoughts, uncertain. But Mom's not going to sign anything. She loves that house. And it's not right, Claire. It's hers. Right? Claire's laugh was bitter, almost cruel. Is it right that we're scraping by while her house sits empty? Is it right that Lucas can't even think about college because we're broke? Or that I'm working myself to death at the bank while you're stuck in that dead-end engineering job? We need this, Nathan. And she doesn't. She's 70. She doesn't need a big house. She needs care. I gripped the wall, my knees trembling. Care? I wasn't some frail old woman who needed to be tucked away. I could still recite entire passages of The Great Gatsby from memory, could balance a checkbook faster than Claire could punch numbers into her fancy calculator. But to her, I was just a burden, an obstacle. What kind of care? Nathan asked, his voice quieter now, like he already knew the answer but didn't want to hear it. A nice place, Claire said, her tone shifting to something falsely sweet. There's a facility in Wildwood, Sunny Hills. It's affordable, well-maintained. We use the money from the house sale to cover her stay, and the rest, well, we pay off the debts, get Lucas a car for college, maybe fix up this place. You want that for us, don't you? Nathan didn't answer right away. The silence felt heavier than the words. I wanted to burst in, to scream, to demand how they could even think of this. But then Claire spoke again, and her words froze me in place. She already signed the power of attorney, Nathan. Remember last winter when she had that awful flu? I told her it was for health insurance, and she signed without a second thought. It's legal. I had it notarized. No one's going to question it. Not with her age and her recent forgetfulness. Forgetfulness? I nearly laughed, bitter and sharp, but I clamped a hand over my mouth. I'd been sick, yes, weak with fever, trusting Claire when she handed me papers, saying they were for the hospital bills. I'd signed them, too tired to read the fine print. And now, that trust was a noose around my neck. What if she fights it? Nathan asked, his voice barely a whisper. What if she finds out? There are ways, Claire said, her tone cold, businesslike. A few misplaced pills, a spilled glass of water, some confusion around the house. People will start to notice she's slipping. Doctors will agree she needs supervision. And if she falls once or twice, well, no one will be surprised when we suggest Sunny Hills. My hands shook, not from fear, but from rage. They weren't just planning to sell my house. They wanted to strip away my dignity, to paint me as a doddering old fool who couldn't be trusted with her own life. And Nathan, my son, the boy I'd read bedtime stories to, the boy I'd cheered at every soccer game, was letting her talk him into it. Then came the final blow. What about Dad's ashes? Nathan asked, his voice cracking. They're in the tulip garden. You know what that meant to him. Claire scoffed. It's just dirt, Nathan. No one's going to check the garden before they bulldoze it. If it bothers you, scoop some soil into an urn and call it George. It's not like it matters. I pressed my back against the wall, feeling something inside me break. Not just my heart, but something deeper. The last thread of faith I had in my son. He wasn't fighting for me. He wasn't fighting for his father's memory. He was letting Claire tear it all apart, piece by piece, for money. I slipped back to my room, my steps silent, my mind racing. I couldn't stay here, not another night. Not in a house where my life, my home, my husband's legacy were just collateral. Back in my room, I closed the door softly, my hands still trembling. The betrayal burned in my chest, but I couldn't let it consume me. Not yet. I'd spent 30 years teaching teenagers to face adversity through the pages of books. Heroes like Atticus Finch, standing firm against injustice. Now it was my turn. I wasn't going to storm into the living room and confront Nathan and Claire. That would only give them the upper hand, a chance to twist my anger into proof of their lies about my forgetfulness. No, I needed to be smarter, colder, like the winter night outside. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the quilt still warm from where I'd tossed it aside. My mind raced, piecing together a plan. I couldn't stay in this house another night, not knowing what they were plotting. But where could I go? Then it hit me. Ruth Hammond, my old friend from the library at my school in Philadelphia. Ruth, with her sharp wit and endless stacks of books, lived in Wildwood, just a 40-minute drive from Cape May. We hadn't seen each other in years, but we'd traded Christmas cards and the occasional phone call. She'd understand. She always had. I pulled out my little address book, a habit from my teaching days when I jotted down everything: student names, lesson ideas, quotes from poems. In the dim glow of the bedside lamp, I found Ruth's number. It was too late to call now, nearly midnight, but I'd reach her first thing in the morning. For now I had to move. Quietly, carefully, I opened the closet and dragged out my old travel bag, the one I used for weekend trips to visit George's sister in Maryland. It was worn but sturdy, like me. I packed light but deliberate. My passport, bank cards, my blood pressure medication, a few changes of clothes for the cold. I hesitated, then reached for the small leather-bound book of Emily Dickinson's, poems George had given me on our 10th anniversary. Its pages were yellowed, the spine cracked from years of reading. "Hope is the thing with feathers," I whispered, tracing the words. I tucked it into the bag, along with an old photo of George and me laughing on the beach, Nathan just a boy between us. Those were the days when life felt whole. The clock read 12 to 15 a.m. The house was silent now, the living room voices gone. I sat at the small desk in my room, pulling out a sheet of paper. The note was my weapon, my way to buy time. It had to shake them, make them panic, but not point to anything too final. No talk of ending things. I wanted them to worry, not to call the police right away. My pen shook as I wrote, but I steadied it, letting the words flow. I heard it all. I know what you're planning. Don't look for me where you wanted to lock me away. I choose freedom. Goodbye. I read it over, the uneven handwriting mirroring the storm inside me. It was vague enough to unsettle them, sharp enough to sting. I placed it on the pillow, next to an empty bottle of my sleeping pills. I'd been flushing them down the toilet for days, just in case I needed to stage something like this. Claire would jump to conclusions, and Nathan, well, maybe he'd feel something. Guilt, I hoped. I zipped the bag and hid it behind a pile of winter coats in the closet. Claire never came in here. She'd once complained about the musty old lady smell, thinking I couldn't hear. Her loss. It gave me privacy to plan. I opened my phone, a clunky thing Nathan had given me last Christmas, to stay connected. Now I saw it for what it was, a leash. I found a taxi service in my contacts and memorized the number. A cab to Wildwood would cost about $60, and I had $100 in cash tucked in my wallet. Enough to get me started. I slipped back into bed, my heart still racing but my mind clearer than it had been in months. I thought of my students, how I'd tell them to analyze a character's choices in a novel. What drives them? I'd ask. Fear? Love? Survival? For me, it was all three. I wasn't just running from Claire's scheme or Nathan's weakness. I was running toward something, myself, the woman I'd almost forgotten, the one who could still fight. As I lay there waiting for dawn, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For the first time in years, I wasn't just Nathan's mother or George's widow. I was Eleanor Bennett, and I was going to take back my life. I closed my eyes, and somehow sleep found me. The taxi pulled up to Ruth Hammond's house in Wildwood just as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, carried my bag to the porch. "You take care. Now, ma'am," he said, tipping his cap. I nodded, clutching my coat against the bitter cold. Ruth's house was a modest bungalow, its front yard dotted with frozen lavender bushes. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where I could breathe again. Ruth opened the door before I could knock, her gray hair pulled into a loose bun, her face lit with concern. "Eleanor, my God, get inside," she said, pulling me into a hug. She smelled of chamomile tea and old books, just like I remembered from our days at the school library. We settled in her cozy living room, the wood stove crackling, a tray of tea and biscuits on the coffee table. "You sounded shaken on the phone last night," she said, her eyes searching mine. "What's happened?" I took a deep breath and told her everything. The overheard conversation, Claire's plan to sell my house, the forged power of attorney, the callous talk of bulldozing George's tulip garden. Ruth's face hardened, but she listened without interrupting, her hands folded tightly in her lap. When I finished, she leaned back, shaking her head. "That Claire's a piece of work," she said. "But Nathan, how could he let this happen?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice catching. "He's my son, Ruth. I raised him to be better than this." The pain of Nathan's betrayal stung fresh, but I pushed it down. I couldn't afford to dwell on it now. I need to stop them. I need proof, and I need to know if that power of attorney is real. Ruth nodded, her librarian's mind already at work. "We'll figure this out, Eleanor. You're not alone." She reached for her phone. "Let's start with some help. I know just the people." First, I called Henry Caldwell, a former colleague from my teaching days who'd become a financial advisor after retiring. Henry's voice was warm, surprised to hear from me at such an early hour. "Eleanor, it's been too long. What's wrong?" I summarized the situation, keeping my tone steady, and asked him to check my finances and dig into Nathan and Claire's. "Discreetly, Henry," I added. "I don't want them knowing I'm looking." He promised to get back to me within a day, his voice serious. "You've got enough in your retirement fund to stand on your own," he said. "About $320,000, last I checked. I'll confirm and see what I can find on your son." Next, Ruth suggested Nancy Wheeler, a lawyer specializing in elder rights. Nancy was a friend from Ruth's book club, known for her fierce advocacy. Over the phone, Nancy's voice was crisp but kind. "If that power of attorney was signed under false pretenses, it's fraud," she said. "I'll need to see the document, but we can file to revoke it. Do you have any proof of Claire's intentions?" I didn't, not yet, but Ruth had an idea. "My nephew, Jack Morrow," she said, her eyes brightening. "He's a private investigator in Atlantic City. He's visiting this week. He can help." Jack arrived that afternoon, a wiry man in his late 40s with a quick smile and a notebook tucked under his arm. He listened to my story, jotting notes, his brow furrowed. "We need hard evidence," he said. "I can tail Claire, record her meetings with this investor she's working with. Victor Lang, you said. If she's rushing the sale, she'll slip up." I hesitated, worried about the cost, but Ruth waved it off. "Jack owes me for bailing him out of a few scrapes," she said with a wink. "He'll do this for you." By evening, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't just running anymore. I was fighting back. But I needed one more ally. Lucas, my 15-year-old grandson, had always been close to me. He'd spend hours in my room talking about his dream of becoming a writer, reading me his short stories. I used Ruth's landline to call him, making sure he was alone. "Grandma." His voice was thick with worry. "Where are you? Dad and Mom are freaking out. They found your note." "I'm safe, sweetheart," I said, my heart aching. "But I need you to keep this secret. Can you tell me what's happening there?" Lucas hesitated, then whispered, "Dad's a mess. He keeps saying he should have noticed you were upset. Mom's on the phone all the time talking about your house. She says they need to sell it fast." I closed my eyes, the betrayal cutting deeper. "Lucas, if you hear anything about their plans, let me know. But don't tell them we talked." Before hanging up, Lucas said something that stayed with me. "Grandma, I don't think Dad wants this. He's just scared. Mom keeps pushing him." I wanted to believe him, but Nathan's silence that night told a different story. The next day, Henry called with news. "Your finances are solid, Eleanor. $320,000 in investments and retirement. But Nathan and Claire, they're in deep. Debts from a failed real estate deal, credit cards maxed out, and Claire's tied to some shady investment scheme that lost them $80,000 last year." Then he paused, his voice dropping. "There's something else. Nathan has a separate account, $50,000, source unclear. I'll dig deeper, but it's odd he's hiding it from Claire." I frowned, unease creeping in. What was Nathan hiding? Was he deeper in this than I thought? Or was there something else? I pushed the thought aside. For now, I had to focus. Jack was already tracking Claire, and Nancy was preparing to challenge the power of attorney. I was building my case, brick by brick, like the stories I used to teach, each detail a step toward justice. Sitting by Ruth's wood stove that night, I felt stronger than I had in years. The fight wasn't over, but I wasn't alone. Old friends, a loyal grandson, and my own stubborn heart were enough to keep me going. 2 weeks of hiding in Wildwood had changed me. I wasn't the quiet, invisible woman who tiptoed around Nathan's house, afraid of being a burden. I was Eleanor Bennett, the teacher who'd faced down rowdy classrooms and skeptical principals, the wife who'd held George's hand through his final days. And today, I was ready to face my son and his wife. Not with tears or anger, but with proof, with justice. Jack Morrow's investigation had paid off. He'd recorded Claire meeting Victor Lang, the slick real estate investor she'd roped into buying my house on Ocean Drive. In the tapes, Claire admitted the power of attorney was handled creatively and pushed for a quick sale before Horizon Innovation's tech campus announcement sent prices soaring. Nancy Wheeler, my lawyer, had filed a motion to revoke the forged document, backed by a handwriting expert's report showing my signature was a fake, and Lucas, my sweet grandson, had kept me updated, whispering over the phone about Claire's frantic calls and Nathan's growing guilt. I knew Claire was meeting Victor at Nathan's house this afternoon, so I planned my return carefully. Nancy drove me, her leather briefcase stuffed with evidence. I wore a simple navy dress, my gray hair pinned neatly, and around my neck was the silver locket George had given me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look like myself, strong, not broken. As we parked around the corner, I texted Lucas, "I'm here. Be ready." We walked to the front door, the winter air sharp against my skin. I rang the bell, my heart steady despite the weight of what was coming. Lucas opened the door, his eyes wide with relief. "Grandma," he whispered, throwing his arms around me. I hugged him tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of his hoodie. "You're so brave, sweetheart," I said. "Now let's do this." "Who's at the door, Lucas?" Claire's voice called from the living room, clipped and impatient. Lucas glanced at me and I nodded. "It's Grandma," he said, loud enough for the house to hear. Silence, then footsteps, quick and uneven. Claire appeared in the hallway, Nathan behind her, and a man I assumed was Victor Lang, holding a briefcase. Nathan's face went pale, like he'd seen a ghost. "Mom?" He croaked, his eyes red-rimmed, exhaustion carved into his features. Claire recovered faster, her smile forced. "Eleanor, oh my goodness, we've been worried sick. Where have you been?" "I'm sure some of you were," I said, my voice calm, my gaze flicking to Lucas and Nathan. Others seemed more worried about my house. Claire's smile faltered, her fingers tightening on her folder. Victor shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. "What are you talking about?" Claire laughed, but it was brittle, nervous. "We've been out of our minds. The police, the search. Your note made us think the worst." "Enough, Claire," I said, stepping forward. "This is Nancy Wheeler, my lawyer. She specializes in real estate fraud and elder rights. And we're here to talk about your plan to sell my house and lock me away in Sunny Hills." Nathan's eyes darted to Claire. "What's she talking about?" he asked, his voice low, uncertain. Claire's face hardened. "She's confused, Nathan. You said yourself she's been off lately, forgetting things. That dramatic note. She's not herself." I smiled, cold and steady. "Let's test that theory." Nancy handed me a folder, and I pulled out the first document. "This is a handwriting expert's report, proving the power of attorney you claimed I signed is a forgery. I never gave you control over my estate, Claire. You tricked me last winter when I was sick." I held it out to Nathan, who took it with, shaking hands, his eyes scanning the page. "That's ridiculous," Claire snapped, but her voice trembled. "You signed it willingly, Eleanor. You were in your right mind." "Then explain this," I said, pulling out a transcript of her conversation with a notary, obtained by Jack. "I need you to backdate this, Mr. Ellis. You've done it before." Claire's face went white. "Where did you get that? Friends?" I said simply. "Good ones." I turned to Victor, who looked like he wanted to bolt. "Mr. Lang, did you know you were buying a house from someone with no legal right to sell it? Claire told you it was worth $2 million, but with Horizon Innovations' plans, it's closer to 3.5. I wonder where the difference was. Going, her debts perhaps, or that pyramid scheme she sank $80,000 into." Nathan turned to Claire, his jaw tight. "You said the investment was a stock market loss. What's she talking about?" "It was a mistake," Claire cried, her composure cracking. "We needed money, Nathan. You knew we were desperate." Victor cleared his throat, standing. "I think I should go. This doesn't sound like my kind of deal." He hurried out, leaving Claire glaring at me, her eyes blazing. "You've ruined everything," she spat. "We could have had a new life, and now we're back to nothing with you dragging us down." "Claire," Nathan said, grabbing her arm. "Stop. Just stop." He turned to me, his face crumpled with shame. "Mom, I didn't know about the forgery, I swear. We talked about selling your house, but I thought you'd agree. I was wrong. I'm so sorry." I wanted to believe him, but then Nancy spoke, her voice cutting through the room. "There's more, Eleanor. We found a bank account under Nathan's name, $50,000 hidden from Claire. It's from a trust your husband, George, set up for you before he died. Nathan redirected the funds, claiming he was protecting you." I froze. The air sucked from my lungs. Nathan's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. "Mom, I wasn't stealing it," he said quickly. "I was going to use it to pay our debts, to keep Claire from doing this. I didn't tell her because I knew she'd push for more. I messed up, but I was trying to do right by you." The twist hit me like a wave. Nathan hadn't just been weak. He'd been hiding his own plan, misguided but meant to shield me. It didn't erase his silence that night, his failure to stand up to Claire, but it changed the shape of his betrayal. I felt a mix of relief and anger, my heart torn. "Claire's actions are fraud," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Nancy's filing a lawsuit, and I'm reporting her to the banking association. As for the house, I've made a deal with Horizon Innovations $3.2 million for part of the land, keeping the house and George's tulip garden. Claire choked, her face crumpling, but I turned to Lucas. I'd like to talk to my grandson alone. Lucas and I climbed the stairs to his room, leaving the chaos of the living room behind. Claire's angry footsteps echoed as she stormed out, and Nathan's broken silence lingered like a weight. I shut the door gently. The familiar clutter of Lucas's room, books, notebooks, a guitar propped against the wall, feeling like a refuge. I sat on his bed, and he sank into his desk chair, his eyes searching mine. "Grandma," he said, his voice soft, "I'm so glad you're back. It's been awful here." "I know, sweetheart," I said, reaching for his hand. His fingers were warm, and for a moment I saw the little boy who'd curl up with me to read The Hobbit. "I'm sorry you had to go through this, but you were so brave, keeping me in the loop, trusting me." He smiled, shy but proud, and I felt a spark of hope. Lucas was the best of us, untainted by the greed and fear that had torn our family apart. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Lucas, I'm moving back to the house on Ocean Drive. It's mine again, and I'm keeping it along with George's tulip garden. I'd love for you to come live with me if you want. Too. You're old enough to have a say, and I think we could both use a fresh start." His eyes widened, a mix of surprise and excitement. "Really? You mean it? What about Dad and Mom?" "We'll talk to your dad," I said. "He's got a lot to figure out, but I won't let him keep you in a place that's falling apart. The house is just 3 miles away, same school district. You can stay with your friends, keep writing your stories. And maybe," I added with a smile, "you'll help me with the garden. Your grandpa would have loved that." Lucas nodded, his face lighting up. "I want to, Grandma. I want to live with you." He paused, then added, "It's going to be weird here now after everything." "I know," I said, stroking his hair. "But we'll be okay. We've got each other." We went downstairs, where Nathan sat on the couch, his head in his hands. Claire was gone, and the house felt eerily quiet. "Where's Claire?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Nathan looked up, his eyes red. "She left, said she needed space." He swallowed hard. "Mom, I don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix it right now," I said, sitting across from him. "You made choices, Nathan, even if you didn't know the whole truth. Hiding George's trust, letting Claire push you into this, it hurt me. It hurt us all." He nodded, tears brimming, but I wasn't ready to comfort him. Not yet. "I'm taking Lucas with me to Ocean Drive. He deserves a stable home, and that's not here. You can visit him, but we need time." Nathan's shoulders slumped, but he didn't argue. "I understand," he whispered. "I'm sorry, Mom." "For everything." I stood, Nancy waiting by the door with her briefcase. "Let's go, Lucas," I said. He grabbed a backpack, and we left, the winter air crisp and clean against my face. In Nancy's car, Lucas leaned against me, and I stared out at the familiar streets of Cape May, feeling a strange lightness. For the first time in years, I was going home. The house on Ocean Drive welcomed me like an old friend. Ruth had arranged for it to be cleaned, the hardwood floors gleaming, the kitchen stocked with tea and fresh bread. No dust, no neglect, just warmth. Lucas and I stepped onto the back porch, the tulip garden dormant under a light frost, but still beautiful, a promise of spring. "Grandpa loved this place," Lucas said, sitting on the wicker swing. He did, I agreed, settling beside him. The ocean shimmered in the early morning light, waves whispering secrets. We'd sit here at dawn, dreaming of trips we'd take. Paris, London, places we never got to. Life got in the way, and then he was gone. I looked at Lucas, his young face full of possibility. "But I'm not done dreaming, Lucas. I'm thinking London next April. You in?" His grin was answer enough. "Totally, Grandma. Let's do it. I pulled out my old notebook, the one where I'd scribbled my escape plan, and wrote, London, April, a new chapter for both of us. That evening, I gave Lucas the Emily Dickinson book, its pages holding George's handwritten notes in the margins. Keep writing, sweetheart, I said. Your stories matter. I decided to start tutoring local kids in literature to bring back the spark of teaching I'd missed. The money from Horizon Innovations, $3.2 million for part of the land, meant I could live comfortably, maybe leave something for Lucas's future. Nathan and I would need time, but I hadn't closed the door on him, not completely. Love, I'd learned, could survive even the deepest wounds if given room to heal. As I stood in the garden, holding a single tulip bulb, I thought about what these weeks had taught me. Life doesn't end at 70 or after betrayal or when the people you love let you down. It's about choosing to stand up, to fight for yourself, to find joy in the small things, a garden, a book, a grandson's laugh. I'd been invisible for too long, but now I saw myself clearly, and I was enough. Here's what I've learned, and maybe it's for you too. No matter how dark the night, there's always a dawn waiting. Sometimes you have to run toward it, leaving behind what hurts you most. But on the other side, there's freedom, there's hope, and there's you, stronger than you ever knew,